Hello, this is the end of March, and the news of today, to prove it is today, that is not working. This is not right. And this is not stupid. Me feeling like a sheep, need some insight in what is going on in this life. This is for the dying. I want rather to live, and I'm not pleased with headlines that suggest I should give up. This had been something done very nicely. I can quite well remember the man having had the directions, like a director looking into this piece of artwork being done well. And this is a thing that was one of the first in this small cage around the cassettes. And this is real history that had been done with some input from my very own, and this then was a new, even smaller new thing. The same technology with the tape, a little bit smaller, but nevertheless it is something where I had the chance to experience how it was done. And as a child I knew only that my mother, I call her Elsie. This is the name, her Christian name, I knew. She had a telephone, or PH, a telephone, and she knew people. I cannot even say if it is a network or not. But I think I might call it that way. Network, and that went to people being deciders who could decide, and then to engineers, and somehow it came to the market. It is important, I was rather young and expecting things to develop, to come up. Therefore I'm looking into a thing to be investigated. And this really is a thing I experienced on the way. I remember there had been other things where music was stored, the records, in German the Langspielplatte, and then a little bit smaller. And later data had to be stored, and then there was the thinking about the hard disks. First the disks in larger scale, and then 3.5, and then hard disks. And it is now a thing to understand why that was then cut off. You see, this is the timeline. My birth. I remember things about 1971, and it is a thing from around it was more in between, and then somehow it died off. And this was a thing that I had to take. This was interesting and not fitting to the market. Things died off. And this is not something to complain, but me now understanding it is not that it was a network only, but it had been something that should have prolonged, even me not meeting the regulations. It should then rather be a thing where I could have regulated the things, the whole circumstances myself, at least a little bit. And this is now into some kind of investigation. Not me saying that I have a chance to look at things. I'm not getting on them. I'm rather feeling hindrances, unknown, hindrances. And that could be like it had been done politically. Of course, law is, I think, on my side, that I should be without any hindrances. And therefore, this is a thing to give you in the open. I do it not knowing who would and will see it. Therefore, please pass it on to, I don't know, to the people maybe that could have been, I can't say, who could have been the acquaintances of my mother. I rather seldom saw anyone. I remember the faces, but not even the address, and I did no record. I had no notebook. It was rather me being introduced, and others understood that I had not too much, I think, but maybe a little talent. And this is not a thing to be somber, because I'm still alive. My mother is not alive anymore. This is not even there anymore. It is now a plain ground, I think. And this is not to be accepted, but it is the case. It is that what is there. And therefore something, maybe misunderstandings, maybe, and the maybe is there quite often. What is with the law and what with contracts? I had been a child, and the circumstances had been rather to survive, enough to survive, but not too much. Now me understanding it could have been politically being narrowed without being necessary. Maybe politically things had been too tight, but this is suspicion, not knowledge. And now, of course, not being very fit, but not sick in between, And this most likely because of another unknown, maybe as well for political reasons, not being known, that had been a birth, difficult birth. That I knew, but I did not know what kind. Now understanding my remembrances had been right, it was contradicted, not pleasing for unknown reasons. The difficult birth, I now come to the conclusion that it could have been me being born lightweight. Lightweight, is it lightweight? Is that right? I think my remembrances are right. I was raised with at least 3, 4, 5 women, mostly. I have my remembrances, and I could not work to that because of things I explained on other occasions before in the other videos. You might see it if you're interested, but it is not pleasing me seeing the tapping in the dark. It is rather dark, and then to lighten is difficult because being called crazy. That is with doctors who are paid, I think, by state entities, and that is as well with question marks. Why is there the circumstance that doctors are being paid to give me the wrong diagnoses? This could have been, and this is a suspicion, it is not proven, but I hope you understand. I'd rather think about misunderstandings than about deliberate, then of course illegal, narrowing me in with false diagnoses. This is the Federal Republic. Because I fear rather not being treated very well. I don't like the name to give to the open. I now understand it is family history that goes back to very, I want to show you, to very interesting things. And this is a thing I want to look to tunes like marching tunes. You see, there had been you see this tune, the Hohenfriedberger, it is a thing, you see, there the name is, where rumors said it could have been the Bayreuther, where unknown forefathers could have been in the ranks. And it had been rumors only. I looked for it, and I couldn't find too much. And it is rather in the Federal Republic, that's called Germany, a thing where it is not in the political correct trace to have military among the forefathers. Therefore, it is custom to confess peaceful, only peaceful ambitions, and this of course is the case, but I'd rather like to be not a sheep. I do not want to be sheep prey. I'd rather like to be someone having defense, but please legal defense only, And there's a line, rumor said, that could go back in 2 traces. This is the east, and one trace rather far to the east, and the other could go back to a military line. Somehow it was united, the western and the eastern, and this is east and west, and there it could go to Frederick the Great, somehow with his friend on one side, and on the other side to Genghis Khan and to Alexander the Great, if that is right, rumors. The rumors had been confirmed with people on the film set, but it was contradicted. Being in the Federal Republic, it had been Western Germany. It is no proof for them. If Eastern people, it had no proof to them if Eastern people said things. You understand, the Iron Curtain divided the world, and it had been dividing the leftovers of Germany. And leftovers, of course, is without that what is now Poland. And I don't like the ideas always to do confessions or to exclude things. Therefore, who knew me understands what my belief and my attitude is. And those had not been many, but it was a little bit on the road till, let me say, this is 1718. This in the middle, maybe 1985. I had been somehow to Poland, somehow, and it was not very long, it was not holiday. It had been invitations because people had been interested to do something in between. It was hoped for a bring together of the divided Europe again, and then when it did, other trouble began. It was too expensive to bring together the western and eastern parts. Too much, it had been D-Mark spent, and then too much euros. And it had been a time where I understood I was not sick, I was not healthy, I was in between, and to earn my own income was then to go to night shift. And that had bound me to a place. You understand, if you had it yourself, that then you are occupied with the night shift business only. And this is a valid explanation. I do not use the word excuse. I do not need to excuse, because I tried hard around 1992 to find out my ancestry. And it is a thing that I did quite intense. I need now a little bit of color to mark out things. It is a thing, when I do it now, I don't wait till my circumstances come to a better ground. I do it right now. I'm not in my best fitness, but this does not mean that the doctors are right, who give me no bad names. And this is like filing complaint. And now with this video again in the open, I'm not claiming and I'm not accusing that the local police and the local government are to blame. It is rather a thing where it goes to different places, unknown. It could have been the missing help from Allied or from federal entities. And the own mother is not to be blamed, because she was, I understood it, under that much pressure, being a very old lady. And if she is, I now understand she could be Victoria Louise, she was hiding with life-threatening danger. Then she was from 1892, officially in 1904. And my mother, the other, then most likely was Johanna Marina. And her birth would have been 1 year earlier, 1936. No. Officially, yes, officially 37 is official, and the other then would have been, and I think it is, the official, the real birth, and that had not been a change, to change names. It was there, and it is still there, and there should be not, it is not allowed, it is not accepted, there should be not the pressure, and there should have been the help from government, but it was missing, and the reasons are not known. Then the eastern side from my ancestry, no, the western, and this is not prepared, you understand, I'm not feeling too much the strength of my life. And this is, of course, to show it as it is. Otherwise, I have no chance, you understand. I tried it hard in the early 1990s, and it was embarrassing to understand. I showed off like someone wanting a thing and not getting it. It was not weakness. I'm not a sheep. It was rather a different kind of strength that is somehow to be stubborn enough without being illegal. And to be stubborn is, of course, seen as negative, as being negative, but I think it is not. It is not, but be on the legal side, this is important. And the Western then would have been through both mothers. The father, Fritz Johann, on the Eastern, and both mothers, that would have been Hessen, and then Preußen, Hohenzollern, and so on. And there is some conflict to be investigated. My mother had to be a refugee in the time when the nobility was, I think it started illegally, pushed out of their positions. She was escaping from danger, and the own family took her not in. And this is a thing very dangerous for, I think, the reputation of some of the families. Maybe those are still alive. I overheard it is said that the lines had been broken off because of the dangers. And I don't know what is there. Therefore, it could well be that I am the only one who was overseen, who was not found and therefore I till now escaped the dangers, and this is not exaggerating. I don't like the idea, but I'm not fearing anything because I endeavored quite a thing. I remember my birth had been difficult. There had been women and a man, at least two men, three men, I can remember being born, and then after some weeks, immediately after some minutes, my remembrance had been there. I can remember the birth too early. I felt this is not right. I should, and this is now being ridiculed with doctors, the psychiatrists, maybe those are fault finders. I have no ambition to go to psychiatrists. I was dragged illegally, I think, to them, and if it had been put in a legal writing, it was then a thing not right overall. There is in this part of the Federal Republic a so-called Betreuungsgesetz, a so-called law for forceful help of the state, and this could be misused. It was in the political discussion from the early start on, and then the Kester-Häuser Stiftung, the foundation, had been put into place with quite voluntary funding on behalf of my mother and me, and it was not put into effect nevertheless. And there is no blame. How can you blame someone who maybe does not know about it? I already wrote them, but maybe there is a problem with the surnames, but the address is important enough. No, it is not. It is there, and this is important. It should have been enough to understand. But not blaming someone, this should not be, the blaming should not be your ambition. It is rather to defend freedom. Later, this should be done precisely, but the freedom is at stake. Doctors are the danger. And the whole system, the danger in brackets, it is to be questioned. Doctors that do things and it is not needed, of course being put then in hospital without you wanting it, it is not okay and there is no need. But some false things happened, not to be understood right now, or to be understood but not understood. And my English is not the best. This is a kind, not emergency, this is not right. This is a kind of a thing you should consider to take it seriously if you are interested in real honoring history. Some honor it, others don't. Victoria Louisa had been quite a rebellious child. My mother herself said she was having periods where she then saw in me, but I had it only for one day. A little bit joking. Only 1 or 2 days, and then being forced in the Dennis show, having a little bit part in crazy behaviorism. The Dennis the Menace was officially someone else, and this is not me to complain I had been there, or to take it as my character, but I remember having been there and then not meeting the expectations. And someone said, why did they choose you? Didn't you know this has to be someone being a little bit overboard? And I tried it again, and it worked, but I had to do it because being asked. And it is important. This is not about the Dennis show. It is about people who could remember me and then give me a verification. I had been in that rather not average circumstances. And this is important because doctors say crazy because not believed facts. Are there. And then, having prepared, of course, to do it with false witnesses. And the false witnesses do not do it because they want to, but maybe being people who are not able to give a valid report. You understand? Even if the facts are then proved, that I had been, not only with Dennis, but maybe with scientists, or being invited with high-ranking leaders. I did not regard them as politicians, but maybe they were having a political crusade to come into that position. I'd rather like to remember people being diplomats and then being governing people, administrators. And this is important because things are going on, and I can remember having had a little bit the chance to help. And looking at it, I understand this is a thing where then the government, if the Ukraine would go under United Nations responsibility, the government then would have been with the energy of the United Nations. And then, of course, the problematic circumstance that the Ukraine as a state entity are somehow then, if that could have been in the place, I'm not saying it is a good idea, but then somehow the responsibility on both levels would raise questions, problematic questions. It could only, as I remember, be done if the entity of the Ukrainian government would call for United Nations help. This would then most likely being the democratic system to declare something like political bankruptcy. I don't know if this is ever going to happen, but seeing the headline and then understanding this could be true, I'm rather at the point to understand the newspapers write things. 30 years ago, I'd expect a whole discussion to be on the sideline. First of all, it is missing to me real solid information what's going on in the Ukraine, how the political system is now working or has been working the last 20, 30 years. And then I could make up my point if it is now the state of bankruptcy or not. There are figures missing showing me the economics, showing, for example, the health situation and the schooling situation, the of course security. How is it, for example, to foreigners, to economic investors, to do business there? And this is not prepared. I'm saying this I'm stating this not prepared. Is it the thing? Everyone who was in the diplomatic, even me being as a child and as a youth, and having learned on the way, learning by doing, and a little bit helping, it was, of course, only then a little bit on my own, but not too much. Everyone should immediately understand that this would affect the contract business between the states first, and that is then I think to be with commentators on the sideline, and this maybe it is in other newspapers as well, is missing. The United Nations are commenting that maybe with the same arguments as I already gave you, that it would then first of all be bankruptcy of the Ukrainian system. And I don't see it, but otherwise this could not take place, that United Nations go there and take over. It maybe would then be something that would as well be first of all in the willingness of the members of United Nations. Think about having the expenses for a governing system, and the economics, as I already said, is not reflected in newspapers. Some say a little bit about it, and it is not going too bad, it says. On the other hand, there is the information a war is going on. Then with me, I already looked a little bit to United Nations informations on the internet. How is that reflected in the legal commentaries? Therefore, this headline is interestingly enough to think about. But first of all, what's going on? Are the refugees from Ukraine still having an interest? And why are those having left and not going back there? Is it the danger, or is it the loss of perspective? Before having any interest in a state to help there, it is maybe a thing to do, because it is the responsibility, the humanitarian situations could give some pressure But with me, it is first of all a matter of lack of information that gives me hesitations to come to my personal understanding what's going on. Writing down what I would do, not only because of the Ukraine, that is to have a news revival, solid information, and of course I think for the decisive area, for politicians, of course diplomats first. Maybe diplomats have it already and it is not in the open. Diplomats, there's an A. And this is private, what I do, and it is rather not to say anything about Ukraine. It is rather, for me, only the background to show you I'm not forgetting other things. But why helping the Ukraine? This is the Federal Republic, and me seeing problems that I'd rather hope that in other European states it is going on a level more better and more able to give the energy to other places than here. I had been in retraining. That is then a so-called Umschulung, and it is with very much legal restraints. And here understanding, because being involved involuntarily as a so-called subject, it is with that many restraints that because of those limitations, it's not going well. And maybe 1,000 or 1,000,000 others are feeling the same. Then it is, of course, I think, first to solve before helping others, then others. But the problem is, Ukraine is having the problematic situation from the day, nearly from the day it was separated from the Soviet Union, and it is not an excuse. It is rather to be looked into what areas are involved. Is it the euro and dollar? Are those military problems solved? For example, it had been the nuclear weapons and heavy machinery being given to one side or the other, and it is I think between the so-called Russians and Ukrainians to look into the things that is solved. Departure, UdSSR, Ukraine. And then looking what happened in between, and after that, then the so-called righteous, the righteous people, ordinarily called judging people, should look into it, or could look into it. But putting the Ukraine under the government of United Nations, if that could be done, or only then if both because the old problems could still be there, would ask for it. Of course, government is expensive. You pay not only the workers, but the things to be moved, to be built anew. It could be possible, but I see that many not seen before legal work efforts to be done, that I cannot imagine it would be there, except no, it couldn't. Is the Ukraine now without any credits from the banking system? Is that a problem that could work on, even being under a different government? It should be rather, I hope this could be interpreted, Ukraine should be under UN administration. That could be translated maybe, Ukraine should have the help of United Nations administration. It is of course possible to put one area aside, maybe the legal work, and put that only under individual judges. But who could do that? It is with many question marks. Therefore, first of all, I would need, if I would go into the thinking of do it that much different from the administrative level, first of all, these questions should be solved, or are they already in, as we might say, into accepted, very much accepted files. And this is the thing that had been a little bit in the press, but then there had been something with the autonomy of the so-called Russian. This is the Ukraine, and there's a part that is more with Russian Ukrainians. Is that right? And the others are Ukrainians, or is it that there's a little bit with Polish people? And this is first to be looked into, because what the paper is saying is not always, the press is saying is not always right. This is totally private, my opinion, out of the blue. And this is calling for detective work, but who could do so? It is the so-called state of reality. And this is then the state you want to have, the want. Maybe it is a peace without any weapons that are on duty, without any militaries still working on, and then the way. As I said before, this is going on for a very long time, and it is the thing that is better to be solved if you understand how in other tensions it was tried to be solved, and as I said before, or tried to say, this is not in any historic books that there had been a trying in Breslau and Bratislava, or now it is called Wrocław, and it is then a thing that had been in this part of the German Reich, but in other places there the conflict was then solved not the right way. There had been a kind of international government, but it was not that of today, the lost war, and then there had been foreign military, but I don't know too much about it, because I was not born before 1867 or 68. Therefore, putting it under the supervision of United Nations would not necessarily give it the righteousness that is needed. Therefore, the best thing would be, this is me, after having understood that it is not understood what I wanted to achieve. It was rather interpreted, me being too nervous. Others called me falsely crazy, and this is not true. You wouldn't understand that I'm telling the truth, except you had been in the Federal Republic. I overheard that the emigrants from Germany to other places in the world, from the Federal Republic to other places in the world, couldn't explain why they had left, because no one believed that it is that subtle, that under the carpet, that under the shallow, or in the shallow, or under the rug, or under the surface, you might say. My English is not the best. It is not my first language. This is me. Maybe I'm looking too crazy. No, I don't think so. It is rather not understood. It could be politically a thing where I was too loud. Of course I was, because wanting to wake up first in the so-called family, and it is a strange thing. I'm showing you what this is. This is a symbol, and this is not what I'm looking. This happened as a child. This is me, and the aunt, she was called mother, because she was a daycare mother. This is the strange photograph. No, yes, this is me. Oh, sorry. This is the strange family. And only me, I did not blur out. It is not to give them a bad name. It is only to show it was that strange. Once at Christmas, all those visited, and I thought, okay, I can take part, but it was rather a thing. I thought, why are those not discussing with me the ugly situation, me being in a retraining? And I was already at that circumstance complaining, having had 5 years without any achievement. That does really mean that something's going wrong. Why couldn't I complain? Is it not the custom to complain about circumstances? Maybe because the belief in the good government is still there, even from insiders. It did not work out. I had to smile a little bit, but I didn't like the situation. And it had been before, 1987 it had been. This had been in Switzerland. And this is me. And I'd rather wanted to give a little bit symbolic, not to look too nice. Because I felt people had not been that open. I'd like them to be. And this is really me now understanding. This had been a year later, 1988. I think this had been 87. And it is strange. I have no complaints. I'm only explaining that I felt some things under the surface. Something's going on under the surface. This is a painting, and I now understand. I was not ridiculed. I thought I was the boy with a beard. Therefore, I was taken as König Drosselbart or something like it, as a prince. And there had never been a talk. There had never been a talk about being a prince or not. And something was wrong. And this is me again. And it is important that I remember, and it was not communicated what was going on. This is not, this had been the topic I started. And it must have been known a little bit, because I remember reenactment, that the survivors came, and I think my mother and me, we had been the only ones, not being Jews, not being Jewish, but maybe others had been there as well. Therefore, it is a thing maybe not being of interest to others. Maybe it had been a single help from my father only. It could have been, but nevertheless, we should look into it, and I mean we, all the people that are obligated by law. And this is something else. This is not about the trying of a rescue to some of the German citizens. I say some because I don't know how many. There had been the escape with the law that had been prolonged because people had been taken into the Reichsbund Jüdischer Frontkämpfer, the RJF. Those had a special law or an allowance, a regulation signed by Hindenburg to have as members an extra acceptance to leave the country. Of course, it was too costly. It was, as we say in German, Halsabschneiderei, too costly passages and too much for the baggage and so on. This is another thing. This is about the ancestry. I now understood could be there. My mother's remembrances about the Breslau-Friends had been very precise. I was shocked how precise it had been, because my mother had been contradicted. And then I understood she was very precise. And then maybe the short in between hints, the not tellings, you might not call it that way, because it had been not stories, but later you might look into it. She hinted it. She gave hints. She gave some clues. But not too many. And this is among the clues. This is a piece of artwork. And I understand it could have been something like a sign to insiders. But I never had the chance to go to places because being on a kind of forced security, social security level all my days, and this is not to be put in my shoes. It is something I had to accept. Life is difficult, and if you are a little bit different than others, you're not fitting in. And I have to accept it. It is nowadays, of course, officially allowed and wanted to be someone who has an own character. And I am, of course, someone being conservative, progressive. I'm a believer. I'm not in any church. I do not want to be in any church and not in any group. But nevertheless, I'm a believer, and I have a good solid understanding of things. It is the schooling of my mother and a little bit with high school diploma. And I had the network a little bit experienced, the network of scientists. And I'd like to prolong that, because no understanding, there must have been a real own ancestry, and that would of course have the right, that had to be bought with the life of the forefathers, and now should have been in my hands. And this is like a sign. What is it? It is a piece of artwork, but only a scratch of it. And this could be a sign. If this is, of course, sad and an alarming sight. It is alarming because there have been tensions before this accident, and then tensions because those had been dead. And if those had been the family of my mother, the other, it could have been found out. And this is a costume of Victoria Ise, but I don't know if her hairs are still on it, because the Victoria Ise was having a group of girls that were lookalikes and had been there for their protection. I thought till now that my mother was one of the girls who was chosen to protect Victoria Ise, and this is a symbolic picture. Maybe my mother and my grandfather, I did not know before, that it could have been that the case. This is in the so-called Wolfsgarten, and it is strange that my mother, this time the younger, the raising mother of my mother the younger had been my mother as well. And this was not what I knew. Officially, it is that it is in the records, and that is not what is counting, it is only what is working. It is not counting. The reality is what counts. I asked before, I was never pleased with the idea that I did not find out. And it was falsely stated on several occasions that it was only dreaming or even dementia. And this, now I understand, is wrong. And this, I think, has to be corrected. And this is Papa. Papa was having this passport, and then he gave stamps on it. It is not valid anymore. He did not want to use others this passport. And this was known. He even went to officials, but it was a thing that officials were accepting or had been accepting because, as I understood it, I had been a boy, young boy, because of the Allied efforts to keep security in the time of the Cold War. This is my mother, the elder, and there is the mother, the younger, and this is a thing where I have every time the effort to find the right pieces to show you. This is my mother, the elder. Oh, sorry. This had been a visitor with Jack Benny. This had been me, somehow not having had much of the companionship of the trainers, but understanding they had been good men in the system of the East. And the system was not of the East, it was all over the world. And it was not a system with ownership. It had been rather a system with co-workers, working together. This had been different, and it was nevertheless, I think, my own grandfather was the head. It was said he was the manager, then the estate would not have been his. Now understanding it does not make sense anymore, and others should have known, even in Italy, someone said, then all this would be wrong, what's going on. I hope it is not, but I'm not wanting to do the wrong things others did who gave away. Or who gave in. I'm not having this kind of dogs anymore. It had been trained to even be in acceptance of a crying child. I normally was not allowed to cry. It was in the Netherlands. There the raising of children is different. And of course a little bit with a joke. This is my mother, the elder. She was not pleased very much, not anymore in 1995. She already understood she was not being taken serious anymore. And it is important that this was sadly enough underlined with a weak government. The government, the official Federal Republic's government, not in the city and not only, in all places, was not interested, falsely saying it is private, and it is. It is not falsely. The excuse is false. Of course you support private businesses as well. It is private, and on the same time it is in the interest of the state to support private businesses, even having been nobility. And this is the thing understood in the past had better supporters. This had been a time where it was the choosing of leaders, and it was not put into place. But nevertheless, the choosing and the acceptance of the quality of my both parents is there, had been there. And I think others understood the character was a little bit prolonged to me. And it is a raising in difficulties, and maybe this is not a bad thing overall, but I don't like the idea to be falsely treated. It is not a fight you can do, not anymore, with your fists. It is rather then illegal, and the validity of a state entity or entities is to be seen because it is the argument that counts, and not the money you have to pay legal aid. It is a thing I don't like, not at all. It is, in my opinion, a false thing in the so-called it is a capitalism behavior, where the capital, the head, is the money. It is a reality, I understand. Therefore, please look into it if you can afford a buck or two, but only if you are persuaded this is worth to be looked into. The chances would be for others as well, but not that you expect it too much too soon. There have been some people from some good men, having had not this not a castle, but it is a joke. This could be called a residence. If you are having not more than a dog shell, it is a row house, the end of it, and I understand it was because of the situation to survive. It was survival mode. Those had sometimes only tents. This is from the eastern side. This is from my father. He was having scars. One side of his head was injured very much, and he was having scars and boils all over his body. Therefore, I understood it is not a good thing to be a warrior. Too much strife, too many dead, and then better have diplomacy as your first attitude, but nevertheless a defense is necessary, and I take the English language to reach those who had left, but maybe with remembrances to the old grounds. It is not the soil that matters, but it is the remembrance that the whole culture is a thing to be held in honor, I think. And it is a thing that was having a very bad time, very much conflict and darkness, and then the unthinkable and the breaking of human behaviorism. Everyone should work on never will take place again. And what happened to me is not that bad in comparison, but it is not to be tolerated nevertheless. And looking into it, you see Papa. Papa could have been a child that had to be adopted, or was adopted because of wanting to have a peaceful result. It was, as the rumors said, a plan to bring a kind of Jewish prince somehow in the nobility system. But it was a rumor that was then contradicted. And therefore it was not believed. But now understanding, if it is true, then this did not work out. But nevertheless, there had been something. Maybe his place would have been in Westphalia, but this is my detective thinking. I don't know. I was trained to be a detective. I had been with detectives, with people training the FBI, and you understand, being then a helper on the way, to carry their luggage and to sleep on the floor. Sometimes I slept in the bed, and the man was sleeping on the floor. It was a kind of father-son relationship, but he was then a holiday papa. And maybe someone is still alive. It had been the 70s. It is quite time ago. Papa is not on this earth anymore, and Mama is not on this earth anymore. But I'd like to prolong what they wanted. Mama said, do not let them go away. Come away. Lass sie nicht davonkommen. And Papa was wanting, I think, to have a preacher to bring them the evangelical, the Protestant idea of the Savior. Therefore, Papa had been quite difficult from time to time. I'd not like to be that direct in his approach. But he would have liked that. Mama would have liked to have the children never to be given up. She said every child has a right for support, for development. And those two sometimes would contradict with what my mother, the elder, wanted. Therefore it had to be brought, as you might say, under one. And this was me trying to preach a little bit without wanting it. It had been after I had been with some of the people of Martin Luther King, the black people. I was then in tension, in conflict, and the day-caring mother, a black woman, she said it is not allowed to have a white boy in the church, therefore I was blackened in the faith. And I had sunglasses on, and that was after, maybe 1-2 weeks after that. Maybe there's a remembrance that I once had been Canon the Preacher, Canon with a K. I remember having said that. This is Mama with me, being 15 years old. Shortly after that, I let the beard grow, and this was necessary because it was giving allergies. Not me wanting to look old, and I never wanted to look that old. This is rather symbolic. After the first being illegally busted, and I want to say it in the open. This is possible to be done. This is possible to be done without being necessary. And this is the dark time. This even darker. I'm not saying that it is that bad. But I'd like no one of you, not even my enemies, to be in the situation to be not understanding what's going on. The trust in the doctoring system is now not there anymore. It can, of course, be revoken, like in a revival. But how come to the point to trust the real doctors again? If those, I asked several of them, did not see it necessary, and this is not, as you might see it, then the result that many cannot be wrong. Yes, it can. It is possible. It is possible that there is a system where it is not wanted anymore to stand up and speak up against false behavior. You understand? It is a thing that had been going on from 1990 till now. It is 30 years, where then the doctors say maybe it isn't that bad to be 3 weeks in a forceful hospital situation. And I don't accept it, even if the whole circumstances would say otherwise. The sober, prudent judges would come to the conclusion it is not okay, not at all. And you come to the conclusion if you understood a little bit about the circumstances, or if you had the chance to meet me in the USA. I had been at the same time in Europe, having had at schooling the grades to be a difficult child, and then being voluntarily for weeks in a US American school. It was understood this is the tension, the conflict after World War II. And I'm not a Jew, I'm not Jewish, but I feel in a similar situation like those had to go through. Being assessed with doctors, like being crazy. I'm not saying it is the same, but a little bit. I have remembrances that it was not right how my mother had been treated, and I still think it is. It is not right. That had been a thing where it was worse. I'm not comparing myself with that. There had been people in the Ukraine that were attacked from the other unknown entities. Maybe it was a conflict to the center of the Soviet Union, and they had the custom, as my mother explained to me, I hope I say no right, to keep the elders alive, is it right? Or was it the custom to keep, in time of famine, to keep the young'uns alive? But one way or the other, then those had been attacked. I think it was the elders that had to be kept alive, or was it the young'uns? It was rather then that the strategy was not there to defend, or it was the strength that had been missing. And this is inside knowledge that should be looked into scientifically. And with me, it is possible to look into all the things from the science perspective, because I have documents that shows that I had been capable to do legal business, even at the times when there had been a forceful treatment. This forceful treatment had been at the time when the so-called Prince Philip died, and then, by chance, of course, only by chance, at the time when Elizabeth II died, and the third time it had been, at the time, of course, by chance only, that Mr. Trump, the President of the United States, had been then put in office, and or be sworn in. And it is, in my judgment now, a strange thing. Who could come to the ugly idea to put me in a forceful holiday is not, to a forceful hospital situation at those time circumstances, and especially those. My English is quite not good. I understand that. It is not embarrassing. I was in a helper's situation at night ship. It had been in a senior's residence. You have no intelligence work there to do. There is no English to use. It had been a thing I had to do. Before there had been a little bit conflict with some leaders of the world, not to be extraordinary. In my family there had been more difficult withstandings and or resistances. Hitler is quite more dangerous than any of you. And it is not that I like the conflict, but understanding that it was then for me only to have helpers jobs, night shift, it is not to blame on the leaders. It is rather a thing being done with the more called small people in the Federal Republic. The leaders I did not see again. Maybe I won't see them again. But why had been the conflict with the small men, with the employers or employees, with the job keepers, the job givers? I was having a job in a seniors residence and said, sorry again, my English is that bad, I cannot even take apart employer and employee. I could learn that. I'm not ashamed, not at all. I learned about people who had been in the Hitler era. I met personally a man from BMW who had been forcefully divorced from his wife because she had been Jewish. Or was he as well? I don't know. Too much about it. It is a thing not to talk about. But I say again, I myself am not Jewish or not a Jew, but I see the man and the woman, the human, and then of course it does not matter. It is rather quite interesting to meet a Jew or Jewish. And this maybe is a little bit different to others. I think others have not met the Breslau friends, and I didn't. Yes, I did a little bit, but not the originals. I had others, and those are nowadays not anymore living in this countryside. It had been then a time where you could think hardly stand the fact that it is in the land of the thinkers and of the artists, Denker, Dichter und Denker in German, and then it was the land of the Henkers. And I'm not saying everyone did it, of the killers, of the illegal murders. And it is, of course, not everyone did it, but many had not been of the kind to consider to help. And I wanted from the start on understand why had my father been different. And this is, now I understand, not possible without going to 1918, that there had been the dream of several young men, rather young men, in the military, having had the life and death situation to be on the front line together as German soldiers, and understanding that quite a part of it had been Jewish and the others Protestant and maybe Catholic. And there it was said one had been a Muslim, and those wanted to be in a comradeship together as real business friends. And somehow they achieved it, and I want to find out. Of course, the hero deeds of my father should be there as well, but this was not in the understanding. We don't do it to be heroic, to be called heroic. It is a thing you do because of your character. And please help me to find out. As my mother said, now the old, or in your days maybe, the old won't be there anymore. And these are the buildings representing, maybe you understand what is a church and what is a synagogue. And I want to do it explaining from the Protestant side, but I'm not a Protestant. It could be that in some day I could be Catholic or Protestant, but nowadays I'm not. And it is not a thing I wanted to have outside of everything, but it is what it is. first I want to meet people and then work out the thing. And it's not too late. The age is not that interesting. I'm somehow in the middle. But people are bad-mouthing already, even about that. And this should not be allowed. Please consider having a small donation. And please do not understand that I want to complain about government. This is too early. This is much too early. And I cannot even give you a solid ground to complain. Otherwise, I would have done so directly to United Nations. This is only my filing a complaint that the surrounding has changed and is behaving in a kind. I could come to the conclusion it could be something that is like discrimination. Maybe it is something like discrimination, and the leaders of the world are doing a good job and had been doing, and I don't know why it worked out that I never came to support some of the businesses in the leadership, and the situation had been that my being raised was on the work line. Maybe this is good. Some think it isn't, but I think the undercover boss had been one of the inventions where I was somehow like someone giving the idea, and this had been quite a time, giving the ideas. That the undercover boss was a good idea, and I did it maybe too long. But I learned from the men and women who had been then at the end being reliant. They had to rely on the help of others, and understood from their life wisdom that it is not good to have no money, but it is a thing you can't buy with money, to have life wisdom, and I wanted to learn from them, and hopefully I can collect some of that. Thank you very much. We have 1 hour 35, no 32, 50, no 38, my glasses are not that good, seconds. Thank you very much, and hopefully we will see us again. And if you know something about Papa, Paul Gerhardt, it is Gerhardt with a D, not with DT. And one said he was the only one that was allowed to have the right. What is a right in a name? With Gerhardt, with a D, not with DT. If you know something, please give me an information. Please, without any bill. I cannot pay you anything. It is maybe in later days, in the days to come, I mean, another circumstance, but I'm not making optional business. I'm rather not wanting to do anything like do Hanford. I remember my father, he was in the security business. He was called to stop the trying to work out things without something. Maybe it was a democratic social experiment. It could have been that way. And then, of course, it was seen that the loopholes of the contracts for some people had been more important than that was what is inside, what is the meat. I'd rather want to have the meat, the things that give the real energy, than to have all the loopholes and rather solid income than the fast and not reliable income. Thank you very much, and this is not Shakespeare English, it is not even school English. It is something that is done to make myself understood, and the effort hopefully will pay off, that I learn about you, and that I understand that it is not my accusation to individuals in the city, but it could be if you knew who would have had the ambition to hinder me or to give me stumbling blocks. This, of course, not allowed and not accepted. I need your help to find out your real detective ambition and maybe your understanding that you help me with a little bit, as I said. But who knows about the circumstances in Osnabrück? What is going on? What had been going on? Is it really the ambition to work with loopholes, to give me a hard time? There had been a hard time, and I now understand by detective understanding, not with some legal grounds in it, but it could work out that way, that my papa had been hindered, my mother had been hindered, and it was said, and the mother, the elder, of course, it was said these hindrances could come out of conflicts between the nobility houses. It could have been with the illegal taking advantage of the NATO status quo, the status quo of the Allies, of the Allied forces that had the victory against the German Reich. I did not feel too strong the loser's perspective. I'd rather saw that freedom was then there again, but I saw the victims being without any personal fault had fallen, having fallen under the rubble, and I'm glad I was born afterward, and feeling my German roots, and having seen German-rooted, Allemand-rooted in America, I now try to bond somehow. It is about the culture from Bohemia to Alsatian countryside, and from the far parts in Russia, where there had been German islands, to Texas or to Chile. I had been in Chile. I wanted to go there again, and the hard time of life had hindered it till now. Legally, there is nothing I changed. Please take to heart that if chancellors or presidents or some of Prussia had signed anything, something, it most likely is not right, it is not valid. And please take this to heart, but don't blow it out of proportion. The world's not going away, the land is not running away. It is a thing to understand that maybe others did not know. I'd rather rely on the possibility of misunderstandings than to claim that it was done deliberately. Of course, you understand, if state entities would do it deliberately, it would be a hard time for the persecutors. Hopefully, it is not. It is not, but there is not someone in the world who should be allowed to break to break the chains to the roots of you and me. It is my feeling that there is someone who wants to cut off things that should be there, like the remembrance of forefathers, of the Hohenfriedbergers, that had been then honored with marching tunes, and there are others as well. Maybe I try to give you things you'd never understood, except me telling you that it is possible that the own father had been the grandfather had been the boy that had been the little trumpet man.
Siegwil, gute Nacht. Schneller einschlafen dank Melatonin. Ausgeschlafen wirst du Champion.
This is advertisement I don't like. This is the tune I mean.
Von allen Kameraden.
This nearly every child had to learn in the eastern parts of Germany. And it was, of course, singing about another trumpet man. Is it a trumpeter? I don't know. And it is a thing with Conquest of Paradise, you see. This well known with Henry Muske. And somehow there had been funding and merchandising, and I did never learn how I came that close in the thinking about how to do it. And this is the thing you won't understand, except I'm telling you that there had been disguises. As a child, I did not understand why that was possible. It could have been taking advantage of the status quo of victors. Something in the policing business even that could have been with problems not being excused with that. And the policing, I mean, about the contract business. How come? I understand people came at the doorstep looking, oh no, that is not good, not the cross of the Nazi. And it is a thing, I understand, that is very often, and I don't like the idea, very often there to pollute the whole thing. If it is said again, marching tunes ascribed to Nazis, this is not right. Of course, I don't think it that way. This is a thing I photographed. This is the so-called Eberleplatz. I have been there, me myself, 27th, you see, and this is on the church. What does it mean? That the cross has no hooks? Is that again something pointing to the Third Reich? Of course, in the Third Reich, there had been the churches doing contract business with the regime. And this is good that this church is stating that it does not that. Not at all. You see? This is me I was going there to fetch something. It was before the official opening, but there is something you can get from automatic delivery. Thank you very much. I'd like to look again, if possible, to show you my parents, a little bit about my parents. And this is a thing I explained earlier, that this is strange. The photographer did ugly things with their fingers, like to make fun about the family. And it is a thing someone in the business does to show the not having respect at all if you do such a thing. And this I never understood why that was done. It was not our habit to retaliate, but it is not accepted, not at all. This is not a game. It is rather me being very solid about my idea and very somber to find out what is missing. The BRESLAU-FRIENDS, as I call them, as I named them, had never been remembered for their want and their work to have a special togetherness. It should then have gone from the city to the country and to the nation, to the nations, to Europe, and to the whole world. And then later there had been an account being filled from international to hinder the erosion of rightful behavior. I don't know exactly how it worked, or how it was named, or how it was contracted. I was very young, you see, at that age. Of course, you see it in the picture. And my English is not good, the whole idea not, and my head is not that clear as it should be, not because I'm drunken, but because it is a thing. Now understanding, if there is politically the attitude to hinder me, this could then have been the doing for decades, even against my parents. And no one knows when it started. And I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't, because doing that would then be illegal as well. Doing that would have been illegal as well. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to state the possibility that something illegal is going on till you know it. And this, of course, as a detective, I'm still doing it. It is not possible. Therefore, even that on YouTube is risky. I was learning from the inauguration of a remembrance, a memorial about a concentration camp, that I was quite bold to go there, even not having had the invitation. And the only thing I did was to show myself that not again the wrong idea, me being sick, would have given as an excuse. You understand? If a government is not inviting me, it is stating that I'm not pleasing. And this, of course, could have grounds, but calling me a bad name, I could not behave myself, for example, is a lie. This is not true. I can behave myself very well, and it is rather that I'm not politically wanted. And this is a thing not to be accepted. And I went there to the place where the stones had been a little bit in a reddish color, and it was every piece of it was argued about. I asked if that would be a fitting memorial, not to forget that there had been the illegal ending of lives, and everything in this country is full of wounds. Even the remembering was difficult, because other than thought those groups were already having enough of memorials, and they themselves had been left out. I see, of course, that it is true that the soldiers are not having the memorials, being forced to the other deadlines, to the front lines. It had been the end of many, and this should be remembered as well. But nevertheless, without being forced, there had not been some forcing or some being moved. It was rather a thing to understand. It is important that you never forget that the Hitler regime was having a religion that was based on false science. This is the whole point, on false science and on false belief. Please help me to have better days, and then more power, more energy, because that is running out, to look into things, not as a history man only, but I want to be that what was planned, and the time in between I learned life wisdom, and the other things I want to do with international help, because I need it. I'm not trusting the so-called German people too much anymore. I think most of them have now left the country. Most of those I wanted to have alongside. Therefore, this is in English. Maybe you are already there for one generation in a foreign country, and hopefully the network, the internet is working. And if you are not physically in the so-called Germany, maybe you can do it by asking. This is the next, not only a little bit money energy, but asking what's going on and how much is in the account and that on. And that should be possible. That should be possible. I need to be not all the time, but some of the time with the archives. I have not had the fun to go there. It is to be paid, and there had not been any help from any governmental entities. And then I have to be asked how the hotel stay is going, because the hindrances had been even to the point that there had been bad rooming, and hindrances you would never expect to be, and no one knows. It is not the governmental entities who do it. It could be private opposition being allowed to do it. Therefore, please think like a detective. There's help needed. And please do not think I'm making things up. People who had been in the Federal Republic and who knew there's still something like anti-Semitism, even me, not being a Jew and not being Jewish, I could then be in the false, and it is always false, but then it is double false, hindrance. I have no group to support me. Hopefully the Jewish have, but I have not. And I do not want to be in a group, not even in the Jewish group. The own group I then would have is to be built. And this should be a nobility house as well. Even the Americans don't like it. Those Americans had forbidden in Bavaria to build a nobility party. Königspartei was forbidden. I don't think it is right, but I want to learn why it was not in the liking of American entities. And there are things to be sorted out, and everything should be based on human rights. This is very much important. This is the only thing I accept as given. That is the law of God, That is the human rights basis. And it is important that I never gave up any of the ancestral rights because I did not know. What I knew, I looked after, and I wanted to look if my mother's saying had been right, and it was said she was dreaming or even having dementia. I do not want to go into that too much. It is, of course, even my mother is not on this earth anymore. Is it to be corrected? It is very important. Even my mother is not there anymore. And with Mama, it had been said she was making up things as well. And Papa, he was having a bad time. He is looking a little bit happy. But later, he was having much trouble. He was feeling to be chased by that I never accepted. He was not even 18 years old when he was taken as a prisoner of war by the British, and I think he would not have accepted some ordination from British. There had been the offer. I don't think he took any. But this has to be looked into, and I didn't take an ordination, not because of those reasons, but it did not work out the way, and I want to have my own line. It is important, but not others to take advantage of me. I do not want to be someone going after other foreign entities, except those who are not right. And this is not, please, it is not to be someone like a means to do things. In German, ich will nicht wie ein Hebel eingesetzt werden oder wie jemand, der genutzt wird. Also instrumentalisiert werden will ich nicht. I said this in German, I do not want to be an instrument of political ideas. I was asked in former days to be someone looking in the nobility system and then report to social democrats. I said no. Then I was asked to be someone to be in the piet, in the evangelical circles. Of course, you could have done so. I said no. I'm not a spy. I do not want to be misused for that kind of reporting. I do not do it. I was asked to be someone looking for Reichsbürger. I said no. I heard about others who did so. Those argued that it is right to report criminals. But you can do it without being contracted, you understand? Criminal deeds I would report, but not being asked beforehand. That I don't do. And this is my line, and it had been all my life. And then it must have been known that I'm quite stubborn in that regard and in others, and that gave me difficulties. Therefore, take to heart, please, that I'm not a friend of politicians and I'm not an enemy. But if people said so, those regarded themselves as friends, I had to clarify that, and I did it to Switzerland, and I'm still standing on that ground. And it is still very much, as I said, to be suspicious about it. But I don't know if people are spying after me. I already reported that I have the suspicion there is something like illegal spying in the house. My mother said there could be something, and my mother said the other. I have both mothers because of their pregnancy sharing. None of them had been so-called Leihmutter in German. My mother is the raising mother of my mother the younger, and the records are not right, but I can't do anything because there's no interest in governments to do it right, to correct it. It had to be done I think, because of life threatenings from, most likely, nobility houses, from other nobility houses, or from the Prussians. I can't say exactly. It was not communicated. Better a child does not know than it cannot babble about it. And I understand there have been that many visitors from the siblings, and the youngest is most likely from another family. I cannot remember my mother being pregnant, and I still don't know where the youngest is from, and I want to say it openly, that there's no misunderstandings. The only child of my mother is me, and the only child, I can't say that I am, but it could be that my mother is feeling like, this is clear, feeling like the mother of all. She did not want to make differences. But the legal thing is still unclear. But I think more important is the line is the only child. My mother was caring for other children. This is true. My mother had been raising other nobility children from nobility houses. This is true. And she wanted to care for the sibling as well, but it is her decision, not mine, that I am the only. And I'm sad that later it was said my mother is a dreamer and officially dementia. It was not, I think. Even if she was having dementia, then it is not that she said it wrong. I found out nothing, not one thing that is necessarily wrong. Yes, I put it the other way. I'm now going after the information. I have it in my mind. And then you understand, it could be politically, to give me the wrong name. I'm also having dementia, a kind of dementia like schizophrenic. This is wrong. Even if 10 doctors say so, are saying so, then this is an illness in the doctoring system. And this is really clear, a difficult situation, but I am underlining it again. I'm not going to doctors, not in this country. I then would have had the necessity to have own money and pay for doctors, maybe other doctors, but I'm feeling that the political idea is not in Germany only, in the Federal Republic, I mean, only. There are other nations in Europe that could have been interested to have it politically as well. Understanding a little bit about the political system, this could be quite stressful for nationalities to understand that there's something on this level going on. And it is a shock to me that till now, no one has ever tried, I think, to explain to me what is the thing that is proved. And there's a false policeman, and this is a thing to be looked into as well. There have been bustings, and I think not all are clearly by police. This is important. Even that could change. You see, we have the 28th of March, 25. In the evening, we have 11:30 p.m. Thank you very much. My name is Friedrich, and so on.